This is something actually I talk about with my clients in the realm of sexuality, because our sexuality, I hate to break to anyone that doesn't feel this way, but it is fluid. Like, it is constantly changing and evolving. Same thing in our real life. Like, our sexuality is a representation of our life. I'm just going to preface that. It models life. There's different stages that our sexuality will go in, and there's like a resting stage and a healing stage, and there's a few more. I'm not going to get into them, but one of the shadows of those stages is you can get stuck in a stage so easily because you form an identity around it. You're like, I'm gonna be the cycle breaker in this generation. So
I'm a healer. I'm a starseed.
yeah, and you get stuck in it though, especially like specifically with healing. And it can make it really hard to step out and like maybe learn a new skill, or be a bit more in your adventurer side where you're actually doing things in your life and actually actively being an active participant and living your life, having relationships, and starting a business, like things like that, like whatever, like it's just an example. But yeah, it's so easy to get stuck in the healing loop, especially if we're like following a whole bunch of accounts that are all about healing. They're like, okay, like this is my life then, and you get all these other friends, like new friends from your healing programs and courses. Like,
we're all just healing
we're all
together
gonna heal and
forever.
break cycles and generational, which is all beautiful and needed and necessary. However, it's a stage, and it is fluid. It will come and go. The same thing, people in the sexuality space that are healing from trauma, or like just healing from breakups, or just healing in general their sexuality. There will come a point that you need to step out of the healing phase and actually enjoy your sexuality or enjoy your life. So I think that's super important. I see that happen a lot.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the realizations that I'm coming to right now, is like those grounded kind of hard skills that I was talking about, things like time management and accountability and stuff. Those are all things that I have anyways been missing out on for the past 5 years because I've been so focused on healing. Because, and I've had this conversation with my boyfriend, it's like my life over the past 5-6 years has been consumed by the personal development, by the healing, by the energy, like all of those things that I never learned, good financial skills or like, or business skills or anything like that. And that has accumulated over time until it kind of builds up and you're like, oh wow, now I've got like this snowballed problem that now I have to deal with because it's something that's been neglected over the past 5 years. And that's not like, I'm not hard on myself about that because I think it was like a necessary process to go through. But now it's like, all right, now we got to like deal with the problem, and we have to like learn those hard grounded skills to move to the next like phase of your life.
Yeah, and just to be a well-rounded human and just feeling completely whole in yourself. Because again, if you focus on one identity, you're not being true to yourself. Like you are not being your fullness, because let's face it, we are 1,001, if not an infinite number of different facets and expressions within ourselves. Like, you think of the woman, and again, I'm just gonna keep going back to here because this is how I relate to it. Like, our sexuality, like the woman, she can be a wild slut. Like, she can be the fucking whore, and she can also be this innocent, like pure devotional woman, all in the bedroom. The same woman, she can be all textures of sensual expression in just one person. But if we are so fixated on one identity, whether it be like the mom, then the mom doesn't do that, that's too dirty for the mom, like, you know what I mean? So it just limits us when we get so stuck in these different ways, and why it's so important to have a little bit of curiosity when we're like, oh, what's that? Accountability skills, for example. Like, oh, that's piquing my interest, it's triggering me, I have a little bit of resistance, but let me just be curious. And then it opens up so much. And the same thing again, you keep using this because this is just where I come from, the sexuality space, where it's like, I am so triggered by that woman with her short skirt, she's a slut, she's a blah 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 blah, insert whatever insults, and like feeling the triggering within our own body. We get curious to that. Like, oh, what about that is like, why do I feel so activated about that? And essentially, there's usually a part of us that wants to acquire that skill within ourselves, or we're just terrified because maybe something happened to us in the past and we shut it down completely. So, so much.
Yeah, anything. I mean, anytime we've talked about this before, anytime you shut something down or like repress like a facet or a part of yourself, it's gonna rear its ugly head in like some other way. And I'm wondering, like we talked about earlier, now I'm seeing like aspects of my personality from before that are like coming back, where I'm kind of like, oh, like I kind of miss that, and it's probably because over the past few years, like I've been like, oh no, like that part of me that was like an employee in the workforce, like blah, like go away, and now it's like coming back because I've probably been like repressing it for so long.
Yeah, for sure. And that's been showing up for me too, where I've been feeling familiar parts of a past version of me that thought I had to heal. And like there was just so much wrong about that version of me. I needed to get so far away from it and become whatever I thought I needed to become, whatever version I saw out on the interwebs, and thought I needed to be more like that, basically. And I've been feeling those familiar parts, and it's been triggering the fuck out of me because there's still, and I'll just say my ego is like, see, we've been trying to shut that down and try to heal that part of you and not be that version of you for so long, and that's not good. So like I'm literally like but because of all the work that I've done and the self-awareness and just being open to feel the sensations in my body when things like that come up, I've been able to sit with that. And what I'm seeing is that there's a couple different like aspects. There's one layer of like just wanting to be like repulsed by that version of me, and there's also another layer of like like that part's not going anywhere. Like let's bring it in. Let's bring it in. And that to me is like shadow work, and that is like the real parts of integration of integrating like who you were before with who you are now, and like really finding wholeness within all of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel the same. I feel like those parts of me that I missed from like my old job, or like the things that I missed, it's like, okay, how can I like bring that back into my life now, and bring that into my work that I'm doing right now? Or how can I recreate aspects? Like I'll give you an example. So I really miss from my old job like the leadership aspect of it. So I used to run a team of about 20 to 30 people, and I really miss like the sense of responsibility that came with that, and just like working with people on that big of like a scale. So now for me, it's like, okay, like if that's something that I really liked, like how can I create that moving forward, instead of like continuing to be like, nah, like fuck that person, that was old me. It's like, okay, no, let's like bring it back because I miss that part of me.
Yeah, and just to highlight that, like management skills, that is massive. That's huge. That's a whole thing that people will get trained to have. So it's like rejecting that part of you, like that's a valuable asset that you've acquired in your life. So it's like, and so that's massive and really, really important to highlight. So thank you for highlighting that. So yeah, like, and there's just so much in these like lower dips that kind of happen after the peaks, and like we start getting the things that we've been desiring, or being surprised by the things that we didn't know we wanted, and we get them, and then there's like a dip in energy. So I trust that our conversation was supportive to someone out there that may be feeling a lull after that peak in inspiration, and just confused and like unsure what's happening. And I just want to invite people to just get a little curious in the silence and finding peace in it too.
I do want to add to, like, I kind of mentioned before we started filming, feeling like a little bit of like the depression in it too. That's something definitely I have been noticing in myself, is like throughout the day, like you go into this little like depression mode. And so for anyone who is maybe in that phase or something, I find it really helpful, and this is like very generic advice, but it's so beneficial, is just to move. Like get out and go for a walk. Or like this morning, I was literally like crying at my house this morning, and I got up and like went to the gym, and just like you get your little like you feel good emotions, and it really helps kind of bring you out of that little like depressive state that you're in.
Yeah, just to expand on that at a nervous system level. So when we are feeling depressed, that is in more of like, our nervous system wants to immobilize, so we want to be still. The whole nervous system starts to shut down, and you have feelings of like apathy, and like hopelessness is a huge one. Feeling hopeless is just a feeling. I really just want to explain this. It's just a feeling. It isn't necessarily true. That doesn't mean that you are hopeless. You have a feeling of hopelessness. So I want to highlight that. Anytime there's like overwhelming feelings that we're having, We are not the feeling. You have to really objective. We want to be objective to that, and identify it. Like, oh, like I have hopelessness feeling in my heart, and it feels heavy, and like, oh, like I feel sadness, and like just really trying to create the object of the sensation of hopelessness. So I just want to share that, because I've also experienced like waves of depression over the years, like in many different times in my life, and that has been the only way I've been able to, if you want to say, overcome it or just like befriend it. The only way I've been able to befriend depression. So yeah, doing that. From that place, your nervous system in a depressed state, it slows down, and it quite literally wants to go into a rest. Like it wants to rest, it wants to hide, it wants to fawn, it wants to like just be still. So stillness is like the motion of depression. And a easy remedy, not necessarily easy, it's simple, but an easy-ish remedy is movement, like you just shared. So the opposite of stillness is motion. So, and that's why it is a really beautiful remedy for at a nervous system level to move your body when you're getting these feelings. So, something I share in the self-pleasure modality is sound, breath, movement, and touch. So that's a really easy way to get into your body, to objectify the sensations, and then move, essentially. So another thing too that I like to do, like on all my workshops, is shaking. Just like, that's a super, you don't have to go anywhere. You can just stand up and just shake your body. Twerking is amazing too. So yeah, movement, walking, again, that's a powerful movement. It's just signifying that, no, we're not going into that depressed, still state, and we're just going to move the body. And this is why somatics is so important. This is why doing nervous system work is so important, because your mind will tell you all kinds of things in relation to the experience that it's having, which would be, if I'm feeling depressed, then I'm going to make up stories as to why I'm depressed, and maybe it'll try to figure out a solution, but it's not going to make a solution. It's going to think about a solution that's not making a solution. So the movement, moving your body, doing stuff with your body would support that.
Yeah, and like for me, even this morning before I went to work out, like my mind, like it'll make up stories, right? It's like, oh, I'll work out later. It's like, no, you fucking won't. Like it's like you're having an argument in your head with your brain. It's like, no, you won't. Yeah, I think your way of doing it is so much nicer than mine. I throw on like my Eminem, like till I collapse or whatever that song is. I'm like lifting weights, like bicep curls.
But that, like when you know yourself,
which works for me. Yes. So it's like a matter of just like finding what works for you.
Yeah, finding what works with you, and just knowing that as well. Like if this is like a chronic thing, don't be afraid to look for help, because it is everywhere. And quite frankly, we don't heal alone. Like we can cope alone, but to get really to the core, like, and it could just be as simple as like reaching out to someone that you know and just saying like, hey, this is what I'm feeling right now. I just want your nervous system to co-regulate so I can just spew out what's happening. Like that's basically what venting is. We do it to our friends. We vent, we're co-regulating with them, or just spewing information. But ask permission first. That's all I have to say. But yeah, just looking out for help, whether it be just with a friend, whether that be writing in your journal, whether that be actually getting a coach or a healer, if you will, just someone to support you, a therapist, whatever. There are ways out there. There are support systems to, step out of this, because anytime it's chronic, there are deeper issues.